Welcome to Beyond Referrals, the podcast exploring how trust, growth, and client relationships in financial services are evolving in the digital and AI age. I'm your host, Emily Armstrong. Let's dive in. Guys, today's guest is truly someone that I admire and look up to so much. His work has single-handedly changed the way that I think about selling, referrals, relationship building, and organic growth. If you have never been introduced to Dan Allison and his work, well, you're welcome. And I'm so happy you're pushing play on this episode. Do yourself a favor. Get his book, The Organic Growth Revolution, which recently came out earlier this year, and he co-authored it with David DeSalle. And this book is truly amazing. It is a full growth system approach for financial advisors trying to grow organically. They tackle everything in the marketing side as well as the referral side, and it's very practical and you can implement it immediately. So I'll drop the link in the show notes for that book. Please go get it. But my biggest takeaway from this conversation is that this profession, this industry needs to move from a sales organization to a service organization, which is something that Dan and I talked about. When you are truly in service to the people that you want to work with, and you teach your clients who you serve, how to refer you so that they can help more people, you can literally transform your entire practice and create an inbound referral engine. And I have seen the fruit of his work firsthand and how when it's implemented, it really does change everything. This is the best conversation on referrals that you will ever listen to. Seriously mean that. You'll get to know Dan's story and his background, his research, the depth and philosophy behind everything on what he teaches, and it will shift how you think. And I gotta warn you, so I scheduled back-to-back episodes on my podcast today, and you'll notice that I mismanaged my time, and my next podcast guest, who is an amazing human being, Kurt, accidentally joined our virtual studio. So that gave us a good laugh at the end. So you're gonna see Kurt pop in at the end, and that was a fun little moment for all of us. But please get excited for this episode with Dan Allison. I am so excited for you to hear this one. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Referrals. I am so level 10 excited about the guests that I have right now to join us. I'm joined by Dan Allison. He did not set out to become a leading authority on referrals in financial services, but that is who he is. He started by co-founding a mental health company decades ago, serving children and families in crisis. Built it to 75 facilities and hundreds of employees in 5 years, funded entirely through organic growth by referrals and great service to the families that they worked with. It led to an 8-figure exit in his 20s and then his career today, which I can't wait to dive into with you. After acquiring a financial services company, he discovered how much financial advisors struggle with this exact topic of referrals and organic growth, and he decided to understand the psychology behind referrals from the ground up. What he has built and found has changed everything and transformed practices across the globe. Clients don't refer people to their advisor to help their advisor grow a business. They refer to be helpful to the people they love and care about. This insight became the foundation of everything Dan teaches. As the founder of Feedback Marketing Group, he's keynoted over 1,000 conventions in 6 continents, trained hundreds of thousands of advisors worldwide, and he's consulted with some of the largest RIAs and practices in the world. And his new book, The Organic Growth Revolution, co-authored with him and David DeSalle, is out now. We're going to talk about it. But all that to say, Dan, welcome to Beyond Referrals.
Making me blush. When you say he founded a company decades ago, I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting old. It's
Well,
good seeing you.
yeah, I am so excited to have you on. You're one of those people. So I don't know if you've heard this before, but every time I talk to you, I feel like you have the most amazing stories. Like you're always telling me something about an event you were at, and then you met this person, and then you're connected with them. And have you heard that before, that you have really good life stories?
Yeah, my actually David DeSalle, you mentioned co-authoring the book with him. He has said it multiple times. My kids always say it, but you gotta think somebody who, there was a period of my life for at least 10 years, probably more than that. 150 flights was like a slow year. And when you're on the road nonstop and you're at conventions nonstop, you're going to have experiences that most people that just have a pretty routine day, they don't have. So yeah, I've had some very, very strange encounters and met some really fascinating people. It's been a fun ride so far in my decades and decades of work.
You're just way more experienced than all of us. So I don't want to assume that people listening to this have met you or know your work or know your origin story. And so going back to your life stories being so fascinating to me, I absolutely love your story of how you got into this industry and how you started your work as a young 20-year-old. So can you take us back to that and then how you became known as the referral expert in this industry?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a straight line. I went to college when I was 17. I thought I wanted to be a school teacher and ultimately a psychologist at some point that would be a professor at university. That was kind of where what I thought. And my first day of student teaching, my senior year of college, they sat me down and they showed me the pay scale, and it was a chart that showed, okay, if you work year 1 through year 40, and if you have a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorate, what the pay scale was. And I remember I asked, like, what's up here? What's off this card? Like, how do you get off the card? And they didn't really understand the question. And they said that's kind of the pay scale adjusted for inflation. And I don't know, I walked out of there thinking, I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how good I was, it was already determined what I could do financially. And I watched my parents, in retirement struggle with, I remember every time we went out to dinner, they would ask the waiter, how much is a gin and tonic? And whether they got one depended on what the answer was. And I walked out that day, went to my counselor at college and said, hey, I'm not going to be a teacher. And he said, well, I guess you're graduated. Technically, you have no teaching certificate, but called my mom, said I'm done, and she was worried about me, obviously. But what happened is I was working in these group homes for kids with serious mental health issues. It was a nonprofit, and I fell in love with it. I loved helping the kids that society had kind of written off. I was always fascinated by behavior and how behavior management works. I naturally was just kind of gifted at taking complex things and making them simple, which is useful when you're dealing with people that their IQs are below 70. And I fell in love with that industry. Ended up when I was 22, I believe I was 22, started a company with another gentleman to have facilities for kids like that. And we had a model that was unique for that industry. And like you said earlier in the intro, we scaled that from he and I were employee number one and number two, and we had a $10,000 line of credit because we were broke. We had just been running a nonprofit until then. But what we did, Emily, was we decided if we were going to hire somebody for business development, because it's not the kind of industry you put up a billboard and makes your phone ring, right? It is very organic the way you have to grow in an industry like that. Our COIs were psychiatrists and psychologists. But the families we served, we looked at if we hired somebody for business development, they'd have to be really passionate about what we do. They'd have to understand all the different kind of families we help, all the different things we do. They'd have to know how to connect us to people that need help. And my partner back then was like, what if we could build out a framework where our clients did that, where they were passionate about what we had done for them and they understood all the different kinds of people we help and they understood all the things we do, even if they didn't use them themselves. And we built a framework for it and we ended up growing organically. 5 years later, we had, I think, just shy of 600 employees and 75 facilities. And we did great work. A big company came by and said, hey, we'd like to buy you. We were do-gooders, so we didn't understand the value of the company and like what it was worth. We didn't even know you could sell a company like that. But when they put numbers in front of us, I was 27 at that point, and I couldn't believe, first time out as an entrepreneur, we had the opportunity to sell, and we did. And to your point, I had a non-compete clause for 5 years. I bought a finance company because I thought that's where all the money is, and I thought this entrepreneur thing is easy. That's stupid. And I sought out into the finance industry to figure out if there was something meaningful I could do there. Originally for 5 years, I was gonna go back when my non-compete was up, and that never happened. I got stuck in the finance world, and I'm still here.
You're still stuck. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That is just amazing. I'm thinking about like you as a young 20 something with this massive success, and you're really doing it because you're helping people so well. Like, what was that like for you at that time? And having an 8-figure exit as a young 20 or a mid 20-year-old, you could have just like totally like chilled and cashed out. But what made you keep going?
God, I looking back on it, I don't even understand how we did it. I mean, the internet was new back then. I had a
Yeah.
pager. Like that's how my
No
staff
way.
contacted me, but I mean, we dealt with the most difficult kids that nobody else would take on and they lived in our facilities. So it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 75 facilities. There was no closing time. So, it was unbelievably stressful. My pager went off. I had phantom syndrome for years where I would feel my leg vibrate. Seriously, like trauma because it would vibrate and it would say 911 and
Mm,
that meant
mhm,
that it was on me. I mean, we had a couple of kids die while my
mhm,
staff were restraining them because they were violent and,
mm.
investigations and everything was I mean, it was a terrible circumstance, but it's the reality of when they're trying to harm other people, you have to restrain them, and the medication made their system shut down. Like, it was incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I think by the time we got that offer to sell, the joy of it was gone. My days were full of, HR and lawsuits and 401k plans and like the working and having the impact on the kids was kind of gone. My partner was in his 40s and that was his chance to retire and he did. And, being young, I thought is a lot of money and it gave me time to really figure out what do I want to do next. But I didn't hesitate at that point because I was pretty burnt out on. I've never had a stressful business situation since then. I've owned
Mm,
different companies in
mhm.
the finance world, and people are like, "Oh, it's an emergency. It's urgent." It's like pump the
You haven't
brakes.
seen
Even
Emergency.
open on nights and weekends, so there's no such
Yeah.
thing. I'm grateful for the time I had there. It taught me a lot about business. My partner, he was a member of Mensa, like 172 IQ, I believe. Brilliant, brilliant man. I learned a lot from him, but it was time to move on and see what I could do in other industries.
Yeah. Well, something that I really admire and appreciate about you is your genuine, just how genuinely you approach the work you do and how you serve your clients and how your mission is to help your clients in the finance space grow more organically through their desire to serve people. And that's just something that you can't fake, that kind of service mind that you have. And going back to your beginnings, that's obviously what you did. Where does that come from for you? Like that desire to help others, to serve others, to make an impact? Because it's very clear to me that that's what drives you and what drives your success.
I appreciate that. My dad was a country singer. That's like the stuff behind me is his memorabilia. He toured with the Grand Ole Opry back in the day with like Johnny Cash and all those guys. But when he retired from music, he and my mom owned daycare centers in my hometown. So they had one with 120 kids and another one with 100 kids. So in the small town I was in, you were raised by my parents and they were entrepreneurs with neither one of them graduated high school, not college, high school.
Stop
Yeah,
it.
dad got
Whoa.
kicked out when he was 15 because he got a mohawk to impress my mom. They kicked him out and my mom quit school after that. They got married when they were 18 and were married till the day that mom died and dad died, 62 years. I worked in the day well, I went to the daycares as a kid, but then when I was old enough to work there, I did. And just seeing the impact of the kid that they had on those kids and watching as they grew up, every kid would approach mom and dad in the store. I loved watching what impact they had. My brother went on to be a school teacher. He has been for 35 years. And I think it was just helping was just kind of how I grew up
Mhm.
and specifically kids. And I think that's why I went the direction that I did. And after that, I realized adults need help also.
What are you talking about?
Well, anyway, there's if you understand human psychology and human behavior, it permeates into every industry on the planet. So my fear was that my passion was helping people in mental health. And what I realized is we all deal with mental health every day, business, the stress that goes into it, client interactions. Like it's all human behavior. So I found that passion in a different industry and that I could be helpful to the RIAs that I work with. I could help them help more people and at scale, 20 years later of doing this. I think I've helped a lot of firms get a lot more clients. And at the end of the day, that feels good. It doesn't feel the same as helping the kids. I'll
Yeah.
never get that feeling back,
Mhm.
but it's certainly gratifying to see people who have struggled so much with growth finally achieve it and achieve it in a way that they're able to do it from a servant's mindset rather than a salesperson's mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. Again, amazing stories. I love hearing about that. I think I've told you this. My husband is a counselor. Yeah. I just feel like that's really near and dear to my heart as well. Kids, youth. So it's beautiful to hear just how that has really just translated over to what you do. And that's actually a perfect segue into your referral methodology. So, to kind of tee this up, so I got introduced to you because the firm I was working at brought you in as a consultant. And I got to see firsthand the transformation of a practice who implements your methodology and just literally the difference that that made. And so I don't know if you know this about me. I grew up in the I started my career in tech and marketing. Came over to financial services because I was super burnt out on corporate America. I just didn't fit in with like all the politics. I was like, this is so stupid. So I loved the idea of being my own boss, being an entrepreneur. That's what got me into financial services. But Dan, like, I can't even tell you, I wish that I knew about you when I was a new advisor, slinging it, hustling. I think I would have had a lot better success in the industry. And at the end of the day, I'm more of a creative, so it wasn't the right path for me. Like I kind of knew that already. But I do wish that I had your referral teaching back then because it's really the only comfortable and natural and like organic way that I've seen to grow a business from referrals. So I want to give you a space to talk about that methodology at a high level because I've seen it absolutely transform practices. And I think everyone in our industry, I tell everyone about you and your work. It is really the most important thing on referrals that someone can integrate, in my opinion.
I appreciate that, Emily. And so when I got into the finance space, I thought if you're a financial advisor, you show up to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and the parking lot is full of prospects waiting for your office to open. And seriously, I thought it was more like
Yeah.
banking.
Yeah.
Could have never imagined because in the mental health field, your prospecting pool is very narrow, right? You
Yes.
line up 1,000 people, they all don't need your help. Well, I thought in the finance space, everybody needs help. So I thought it would be a lot easier. And what I observed with business development were, I saw the salespeople, hardcore, make a sale, earn a commission, on to the next one. They deserved referrals the least, but they talked about it the most. Then I saw the people that put the client first, servant mentality, fiduciary, comprehensive in what they do. They deserved it the most, but they talked about it the least. And I didn't understand like why, if you're great at serving people and the people you serve are happy, why is it uncomfortable to talk about wanting to provide that help to more people? And so I read every book that I could read about referrals, but I read them as a client. I'd never been an advisor, so I didn't have that perspective. And I thought about my own advisor using that, like, I get paid in two ways. And one of those ways is I expect, and I was like, oh my God, this is cheesy and
Yeah.
weird.
It's
I
cringe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I started to understand, well, if you're trained that way, I understand why you don't want to be lumped in with those people. So I started asking advisors if I could interview their top clients to try to understand the behavior of referring, like starting with, why do they choose the advisors they choose, and what is it that makes an experience valuable? Is it tied to the economy and returns on the investment, or is it more the non-tangible kind of relationship trust kind of things? And what I found, and then I fell in love with that because it was almost like my roots. It was psychology. It was understanding where does the behavior come from, because if you understand behavior and what the motivation is for the behavior, it's easier to change the behavior. What I found, Emily, I have never, in 22 years of doing this, I've not gone into an RIA and interviewed their top clients and come back to them and say, hey, I know the referral problem. I've identified the root of it. It's that you're really bad at what you do and your clients don't like you. Like these clients were happy. Oh my God, I love them. I give their name to everybody. It was like no shortage of clients that were willing to refer, no shortage of ones that thought they had referred frequently. But when you drill down into the weeds a little bit, we found it was little tiny things that were broken that stopped those clients from being effective at referring. A great example of that is, 80% of the clients that say they refer, they were just giving out the advisor's contact information. Most of the time, never even telling the advisor they did it. So you have a client interacting with somebody that said or did something that made them think, hey, they need help. I know somebody that I trust that can help them. But the method they used to get that help to that person doesn't work often unless they have a lot of urgency. So is all these, it wasn't an issue of are they willing? Is the advisor doing a good job? It was communication really. And what's interesting, you brought it up earlier. I've never had a client in 22 years that when they tell me they do refer, that when I ask, what's the motivation behind it? What's the outcome you're hoping for when you give out your advisor's contact information? I've never had one tell me why do it because my advisor gets paid in two ways or they have an organic growth AUM goal of 10%. Like it's the
Never.
clients don't even understand my question. They're like, well,
Yeah.
my brother needed help. So it's like, what I observe, Emily, and I hope the people watching this really that this part of it that they can internalize. You have an industry where every single study I've been a part of or I've conducted myself shows like 90% satisfaction rates for the top firms, for their clients, a willingness to refer that is very high, but a 3% organic growth outcome. And I think that number is inflated. Mathematically, that doesn't make any sense.
Crazy
So,
disparities.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so what that gap is a client's ability to be effective at what they're already trying to do. The example I gave earlier, if you hired somebody for business development, they could be willing to develop business. But if they're not good at connecting the person that needs help to the person in the office that can provide it, you're not going to be helpful to as many people. If they only understand a portion of what you help people with, they're only going to be able to identify that kind of person and they're going to miss a lot of people we could help. It's all these things. It's like clients develop business for us and they do it to be helpful to people, which is the best business development you can have. We have to enable them to be effective at what they're already trying to do. So what I observe is an industry that used to be sales, life insurance agent, stockbroker, and a lot of the people who are watching this may have come up in the industry and got all that sales training. Well, the industry has evolved into a service industry. And I don't think a lot of the training and the mindset has yet. It never occurred to me in the mental health industry that we were salespeople. Like literally never, we never got sales training. I never got trained to say, hey, Emily, do you know the names of 5 people with a mental health issue that like we had a passion for helping these families. We were great at it. And our mission was to help as many families as we could possibly help. The fact that we earned a lot of money by doing it, I mean, that was the natural outcome of being helpful to a lot of people. And we didn't feel any guilt about that. Our whole mission was be helpful. So I think the industry needs to evolve beyond in the boardroom where everybody talks about growth goals and we're trying to get 10% AUM growth on $1 billion. So we're trying to get 100 million of AUM. It's like all those conversations got to go away and we got to start talking internally about being helpful to people. How many people do we want to help this year? And if you don't hit the metrics, you're targeting the wrong people. It's not about anything but you're targeting. But if you target right, you end up at the same number. But I don't think a lot of leaders understand the mental baggage that they are creating with internal dialogue and the way we talk about AUM and growth. And it needs to evolve into a servant organization, not a sales organization pretending to provide service to people.
Gosh, it's crazy how many parallels there are between the financial services industry and the mental health industry. Like, if you can grow a business in that space that you did, where it's like really, you don't ask people, who do you know that has a mental health disorder that's like really taking a toll on the family. I want to market to them, you know?
I pointed out your LinkedIn profile. Any of these connections have a mental health like, yeah,
Yes. So give me an example of if you have any top of mind, like maybe a client or a firm that you're working with or that you've worked with, that what does it look like to go from a sales mindset to a more servant mindset? Like how does that change their outcomes and how they actually like do business development?
yeah, I got a perfect example last night. I have a firm in Australia that I've been working with for like a year and a half. They're the largest RIA in Australia. And over there, they're a little bit more conservative. They're not as salesy. And one of their lead team members was telling me last night after he had a couple of successes implementing what I had taught. He said it actually occurred to me when I got away from looking at what you taught us as scripting and a clever way to talk about referrals, that you're actually just empowering me to be honest about what I actually feel, which is like if you're a client of mine and I've done a great job for you and I get your feedback, Emily, and you're like, oh my God, you've been amazing to work with. You've made a big impact on our family. It isn't weird for me to say, I really appreciate that. That's what we work hard to do. And I'm glad that outcome is there. And so you're aware we do have capacity to be helpful to another 6 or 8 families over the course of the next year. So if ever there's a time somebody you care about needs help, I just want to make sure you know we have that capacity. That's not a clever way to talk about referrals. It's the truth. It's half the clients I interview, Emily, they believe their advisor is at capacity. Now,
Yeah.
now think about that because I was hired because the company wants to grow. But the clients are like, oh, they're really busy. I don't know if they have time for more clients. Meanwhile, when I do the calls with the advisor and I say, how's it going? To start the call, it's, oh God, it's tax season. It's crazy. You know, that's how they're answering when clients ask, how's business? So they're trying to project success and they're projecting overwhelm. And if you answer that question as I got asked it all the time in the mental health company, how's business? And I would say business is fantastic. We're helping a lot of people, but the best thing is we built out a team that we still have capacity to help more people, which really is exciting for us. Like that's not salesmanship. It's the truth. It's in line with my mission to help as many families in the state of Nebraska back then that we could. Like, so unlocking once you get rid of that mental baggage and the trauma from sales training and
Oh
you
my gosh.
realize,
Still working on that one.
yeah, I the guy last night was 60 years old and he is still 30 years in trying to get rid of that trauma. And it's like, dude, if you believe, which is an important point, if you believe what you do is valuable for people, that you actually do help people. That sounds weird, but deep down, I think a lot of advisors wonder, am I moving the needle for these families or am I just throwing their money in an investment account and calling it holistic planning? But if you believe the help you provide is meaningful and impactful, why would you be insecure about admitting that you'd love to help more people? It doesn't make any logistical sense if you have a servant mentality.
That's really amazing feedback. I'm thinking about it like this. So when I was a new advisor trying to prospect and grow my business, I tried on so I'm a like visual person, but every like referral script felt like trying on an outfit. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this one. Like, so since today was free, my expectation is that you provide 5 to 10 introductions of people that you think would find this valuable because I could charge you, $5,000 for this. I tried that on. That didn't feel good to me. I tried on like a more passive one, like, hey, if anyone would find this valuable, like just let them know I'm here. That doesn't do shit.
Right.
That gets you
Yeah.
nothing. And it's like I tried on all these outfits for that type of like, because that's a really important part of how an advisor grows their business. And they all they didn't feel good. But when I really like learned your language, your whole process, and it's not like a check the box. It's like you have to be committed to growing your business this way because it's a like deeper investment than just here's a script. If you really want to do it well, it does take some time, but it's a huge payoff, multifaceted payoff. But I feel like your stuff is like an outfit that I'm like, yeah, I feel good in this outfit. This works. And that's like the transformation you're describing from that client.
I have never thought about what you just said, but it clicked something in my brain that it's like, I think my stuff really resonates with somebody who is a servant in a sales industry, or they're sales, but they want to become a servant. It's who they naturally are. They've had to be a salesperson to get up that hill at the beginning. Even the best, people that come up through, the Merrills of the world or Northwestern Mutual, they get all that sales training. And once they get over that hump where they know, like, I'm going to make a living in this industry and it's going to be a comfortable one. Even those folks, the first thing that goes is the awkward, uncomfortable stuff. They stop doing it because it's not who they are. It's who they had to be to get there. But I think what's scary for a lot of them is when you pivot away from that stuff, most firms don't have something to replace it with that is effective. So they plateau. And that's why you see so much, and Schwab and Fidelity institutional referrals. Most growth is not growth. And I define organic growth as new clients that came to the firm as the result of something intentional that was executed by the actual humans in your office. Getting a referral from Schwab is not organic growth. Buying a book of business is not organic growth. Market growth is not organic growth. I don't even know that wallet share, I would consider it organic growth. It's on the marketing front. Do you have a consistent, systematic way to let people know that you help people like them, that gets their interest enough to come see you? And once they've become a client, do you have a systematic approach to deliver a referable experience in the first place? That's more important than anything. You brought up like, hey, I gave you something free that should be worth 10 grand. So I expect that's the problem with the industry. It's like the one size fits all of here's what you say to get referrals. There's a big assumption there that you have experienced something that is referral worthy, number
Yes.
one. And number two, that you're the kind of human that psychologically is built in a way that you're comfortable saying, I work with Emily, you should work with that. Not everybody's like that. A lot of people are private. They don't want to get involved in their friends' finances. So every time you execute one of those one-liners, you're actually hurting a relationship.
Right.
And
Yeah, it's
I did it
breaking down the relationship.
right. Which is why to me, the crux of what we teach is consistently sitting down with a client, push all the finance stuff to the side and ask, how are you doing? How do you feel about this experience? What are we doing well for you? What can we do better? How do you feel about our communication? And only when they rave and they can't be critical and we've done everything we can, should I even broach the topic of, I'm glad that you feel that way. And so, we do have capacity to do that for more people. I always wanted the feedback because the last thing I want is critical feedback. And then I'm like, well, I appreciate. So do you know anybody else who might want to have a below average experience and like terrible communication? Like, I want to know, is it referral worthy? And every client
Yeah.
defines valuable experience differently. They're all very different.
There's just so for anyone listening, I want to give them kind of the arc of your methodology and then they can go read your book and then I'd love to get to the book, but to sum it up, the most like mind-blowing thing when I learned your methodology for the first time was the ask. So, what is your comfort level, Mr. and Mrs. Client, around something like referrals? And then they can respond instead of just going there right away. You first invite their feelings around it. And then that gives you the next step, the direction on, okay, is this a conversation to pursue or not? And then getting the feedback. And that's helpful. It's one affirmation and them like restating the value and them remembering what you've done for them, but it's also helpful feedback for you as a firm and as an advisor to know what your clients value most. So like another thing that I love that you taught me was just how valuable the feedback is for the feedback itself.
Yeah.
not for getting the referrals, but just for the feedback. So you ask them first, you get their feedback, or you get their feedback first, probably, then you ask them the comfort level. And then you educate or cross educate on the services you provide. So you say, hey, we just did your plan. We tackled insurance. We got your cash flow set up, but these are all the other areas of planning that we help with. So, that triggers them to know that they're all the services that you have, or you can even say, hey, we typically work with people like this and we solve these pain points. And then it's, hey, whenever, and then it's the education of the how to refer. And then I love your data to give around that, 91% or 98% of our clients actually have a referable experience, but then there's a really big gap between their intention to introduce us to people they know we could help and then the execution of that intention. So to close that gap, here's what we see work really well. And I mean, just that's it. And you do that enough times, you have that conversation with enough clients for enough amount of time, and you've got a referral machine.
Yeah.
What would you add to that?
The reality of it is we don't even train anybody to ask for referrals. When you follow the talk track, I guess, of what we teach, it's offered by those who are built in a way that they typically like to help other people. But by doing it in the way we teach, you also avoid the people who are not comfortable pressuring them to have a
Right.
conversation. So the easiest way for everybody listening that we look at 5 characteristics. When I interviewed, I mentioned never found a shortage of clients that were willing. Many of them believe they are trying to refer or they have referred. Capability is the issue. So there are 5 things that we try to instill in every client relationship that we have. Number 1, they value the experience enough that they feel very comfortable with the risk of recommending that somebody who's important to them get our help. Value has to be very high, which by default lowers risk. Anybody that recommends anything, a movie, a restaurant, an advisor,
Skincare products.
there is some level of risk if it goes sideways. And if it goes great, there is a level of reward in the form of, hey, that skincare stuff has changed my life. I've tried everything and you told me about that. Feels good to somebody who likes to be helpful, who is a servant by nature. So to me, it's about you got to drive the value so high that the risk is almost not there. Feedback is my measurement of that. And not feedback like, hey, anything else we could be? I mean, intentionally sitting down, blocking time, having questions, telling the client, hey, I want to block some time when you come into our review. Just get your feedback, take the temperature, see how you're feeling about things. So, number 1 is that. Good news, most advisors already accomplished that. Bad news, that means they're willing to refer. They value the experience enough to do it, but the other characteristics normally derail their ability. So, number 2, you mentioned it. These clients are so poorly educated about what the advisory firm actually is able to provide to people. Most comprehensive firms, they've got a laundry list of services that are available, and there's no clients who use every service. And what happens, most clients stereotype the firm by the few things that they need. And as a result, they've got 70% of things the firm does that they don't need themselves. So they aren't even aware they exist. It's like owning a store that you're covering up 70% of the products from your customer. So even if they need help, they don't know it's available. But if you think about how that impacts the referability, if they're talking to somebody who's going through something that they haven't gone through themselves, they may not connect those 2 dots saying, oh, I've got somebody who can help you with that. So now all that trust and that goodwill that I've built doesn't transfer on to somebody else. So second characteristic, we re-educate existing clients continually about everything that is available in case they ever have a need in the future that is different, or somebody they care about has a need that is different than theirs. We simply want to make sure they understand what's available. To me, that's like just common sense,
Yeah.
but
Right.
it's not done. We educate people when they're prospects. After they say yes, we put them into the client experience, education stops. So
Mhm.
that's 2. Number 3, clients have to know you have capacity to help people. It's the silliest thing on earth, but half the clients we interview think you're
It's
too
so
busy.
brilliant. Yeah.
It's so
It's
simple.
key. It's critical. Yeah.
They need to know if you have certain characteristics of what an ideal client would look like. The clients have to know what those are. And it's not what Emily, we don't want to work with anybody who has less than $2 million. That's our minimum. It is, we have capacity to help people. And the people that we find get the most benefit out of what we do are people who XYZ. And if it's a minimum, it's, they typically have a couple $1 million or more because life gets a little bit more complex when the assets grow. And that requires the level of planning that we do. That doesn't mean somebody who doesn't have those assets is less than. It means that our model is built for people with complexity. And so we find these are the people that benefit most. So 3, they've got to understand that. 4, the big one is when a client is trying to be helpful to somebody, they have to understand an introduction to that person is the only way to really get that outcome. Out our contact information is not, and some clients still only want to do that. Maybe they don't have a lot of influence over them. But most clients, when they tell me they gave the advisor's name out, when I tell them, that the odds of that person getting help are very small unless there's something urgent. So what they'll do is they'll intend to call the advisor, put it on the back burner. Time passes, a year and a half goes by, and they don't have help, right? But if you make an introduction as simple as an email, the odds flip that the person you're trying to be helpful to actually experiences the help. And clients look at me and go, I didn't really think of that. I assumed they just called the advice. They don't know. They thought they were
No.
helpful. But what
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
person didn't get help, the client didn't get to be helpful, and we didn't get to help anybody. So lose,
No
lose,
one
lose.
wins. Yeah.
Nobody wins. And on the other end of that, this is what the advisors watching this need to understand. On the other end of that is a family that still doesn't have the help they deserve. I had dinner with a friend of mine. He owns he's a he owns an oncology treatment center. He's world renowned in the prostate cancer world. And he was trying to understand what I teach. And he said, I don't understand. So if somebody that I had treated for prostate cancer was in remission and starting to feel good, and then they told me my uncle was just diagnosed also, I would feel uncomfortable saying, hey, get your uncle in here and I'll provide the same kind of help to him. Should I feel uncomfortable about that? I don't understand. It's like, that's because you weren't trained in sales. It's the sales training was the problem. That guy would have no problem saying, who's treating him? Well, nobody now. Okay, connect me with him. He deserves help. Because the alternative
Do
is
it now.
yeah,
Yeah.
the alternative is somebody who doesn't have treatment. Like, it's the same thing. We just have to look at it the same way. And then finally, the 5th characteristic, advisors, I think, when they understand what we call gold mines, which isn't a monetary term, it's a personality term. They're a great client, but they have that thing where they will say, I work with Emily. They like helping other people.
They're
When
connectors.
yeah, they're connectors. And when our process helps you identify who those people are, so you engage in the right conversations with them and you respect what we call landmines, which means great client, good personality. They don't take that extra step. And that could be they're private about money, could be they had a bad experience in the past recommending something to somebody that blew up. And that experience permeates into referral behavior across all industries. Had nothing to do with the advisor. So it's those 5 characteristics. If you instill those in your clients, they go from being willing to refer to capable. And all those things are conversations. Hey, I want to update you on all the stuff we currently offer. I don't ever want you to have a need or a concern in the future that you don't get help with because you don't even know we do these things. And hey, so we have capacity to bring on another maybe 4 to 6 families. And here's the kind of people that benefit the most. I tell you that in case you ever know somebody who needs help, which may never happen. And that's fine. But if it does happen, you should know we have time for those people. You shouldn't have to call me and say, hey, Dan, I know you're busy, but my nephew is going through some stuff. Any chance you would? That shouldn't happen. I should get an email saying, Dan, by way of introduction, email meet my nephew. He's going through it right now. He needs some help. I told him you're the best. That's what should happen. And those are just conversations. That's it.
And I've literally, yeah, I've seen the fruit of of that methodology being implemented. Like I remember meetings I've been in where we're going through the whole education process and clients in their 50s are like, "Oh my god, I need to get my mom and dad in here." Boom, the mom and dad's in there 2 weeks later because
Yeah.
they know exactly what to do. So this is really good. I want to plug the book really fast. So let's just I have one question on the book before we go into lightning round. So the book Organic Growth Revolution, it's very good. I read it. It's all about setting up the marketing piece to attract the right clients and then the feedback piece that we're talking about. But tell me why now and why this book? Why did you need to write this book?
God, it's one of those things that has been a project on the list forever. And, I had in the course of 1 week, I had 3 different calls with C-suite executives, one with an $800 billion with a B
Crazy.
RIA operation, and 2 others with above 500. So these are 3 of the biggest. And the C-suite executive said, I was referred to you because organic growth is a big focus for us. And I said, can you help me understand what is your strategy? What does it mean to you? And they literally they had no answer. They're like, the title chief growth officer couldn't really explain organic growth and what it means to them. And it was like, these firms don't have a process for any of this stuff. And I can only get out to so many people. I'm terrible, as you know, on social media and all that kind of stuff.
I've seen way worse.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
good.
uncomfortable with like sending videos out all the time, but it's like David and I said, everybody's talking about organic growth. It's where we've spent our life helping people. Let's put a book. His core competency is marketing, psychology of marketing, mine's referral. So we wanted to write a book that is not just a philosophy, but actually like an execution
Yes.
book, not just a why to do, but a how to do kind of book. So I think we pulled it off. I wrote a book 10, 15 years ago, and it was absolutely terrible. I felt
I
awful.
want to read the book.
Oh, no, God, if I
You're
could.
not going to tell me what it's called so I
No.
can't go find it.
I wrote it in 48 hours because somebody told me if you're going to be a professional speaker, you need to have a book. So I wrote
Mhm.
one. It was awful. This one's good. There's a lot more experience in this book than I had when I wrote the first one.
Yeah, I love that's what I loved the most about it is it's so practical and tactical and it can be immediately implemented. So this is my plug for the book. Everyone trying to grow their practice, read this book because you will take some things out of it. Okay, can we do some quick lightning round questions? This is really
Absolutely.
just fun for me to get to know
Let's
my
do it.
guests better. Okay. What is the best piece of advice you've ever ignored?
My God. I'll tell you the thing I struggle with the most. My mom said it, and then my business partner said it, which was the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two, which I'm actually writing a book right now called The Wisdom to Know the Difference. I struggle with that daily. When circumstances happen, acknowledging if it's something that's beyond my ability to control it or change it, I think when you have a servant mindset, you want to fix everything. You want to solve everything. You want to help everybody. And I get sucked in non-stop to helping everybody through everything. I hired a therapist, which was weird having been one, like to help me problem solve. And it's one thing that I ignore his advice all the time is you got to be a little bit more selfish and take care of the things that are a priority for you, not get distracted constantly by helping everybody who needs it, which sounds silly, but it's something that really does distract me from accomplishing what I want to. Pulled into everybody else's problems.
Yeah, you're the kind of person who I could see that. Okay, let me pick my last question. Entrepreneurship advice you don't subscribe to.
Almost every single thing I see on social media. Like, I,
Mhm.
I am so sick of like the brain rot that is happening for young people when they watch social media about like I made $100,000 a month in 90 days, and it's like
Yeah.
all these people saying that if it were true, they wouldn't be online trying to tell you about it. They would be scaling it privately.
Yes.
I think that if you're gonna be an entrepreneur and you are looking for a get rich quick or you're doing it to get rich, you have a small chance of success. I think you have to find something that's unique to you that you're good at doing, it comes natural to you, and you gotta put your head down, and it is a grind as you are experiencing. To be a
Yes.
successful entrepreneur is incredibly hard. So the entrepreneurial advice that I can't stand are all the people that would imply that it's easy and
I
you
know that there's so
right.
many like millennials of like on Instagram, I made 300K this month, like doing, and they're on the beach. I'm like, just stop.
Yeah, obviously it works and it's a shame, but entrepreneurial advice that I see out there is everything I see out there for the most part is not practical because the people doing it aren't on social media doing
Yeah.
that.
They don't have time.
They're too busy grinding and they're in the thick of it and they're trying to solve all the problems that happen every day when you own a business. So
Mhm.
all of it would be my answer to that. All the advices.
Literally everything you see online is
Yeah, a
trash.
lot of it's bad.
Oh my gosh. Dan, where can people connect with you?
I always hate when people ask me this because
Because
not
you
my thing. LinkedIn is really the only social platform I spend time on.
yes.
Other than that, I think if people Google me, there's a lot of good content online that we have
Mhm.
some videos and stuff that can train people on some of this stuff. And
My next guest.
no problem.
Let's wrap up. Dan, you're amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Great seeing you, Emily.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. If this conversation resonated with you or you learned something new, make sure you follow the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. And do me a favor, like and subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Comment on anything that you want to see or hear more of in the future as well. You can also stay connected by subscribing to the Wonder Weekly newsletter and connect with me, Emily, on LinkedIn at Emily Armstrong or Instagram, Emily Armstrong 2.0 for more insights on building modern client service firms. Until next time, keep on adapting, modernizing, and growing beyond referrals.